Hello CIS40A. This is a video for Lab3-2 for those of you who couldn't make it or you wanted to rewatch to look over the lab exercise that we've done in class. In this lab assignment, we are going to use two devices. One is going to be the Netgear 5-port Smart Manage Plus SOHO switch. And this switch is designed for small business and home use. The model for that is Qos 100 NAS, and we are going to use TP-Link wireless router that we previously used in the prior lab. So to start, what we'll do is we are going to visit this website, and on this website it's going to allow you to find the download for the application that you will need to configure. As you select this option, you are going to go to Netgear website, and on the Netgear website you will see that there's this download button. You are going to click that and it's going to take you here. So depending on the operating system that you're using, you're going to select the proper download. So if you're using Windows, you would then click that and click download. If you're using Mac, you would click the other option here. So you will need to download this file or the zip folder, which would contain the executable that we will need to launch the configuration app. So in this step, it talks about downloading the switch discovery tool. Then if you're using Windows 10, you are going to use the version 1.2.103, and or you can click the appropriate version for your operating system. Once you download, you're going to find the zip folder in your downloads folder, which would be here. And then you're going to right click and you can choose extract all, or in my case, I would use 7-zip and then I would choose extract file. So you're going to have this folder that is extracted, and in it, you're going to find two things. One is going to be the release note, which is an HTML file, but we want to run the application which has the purple icon there. So once you have that open, what you're going to do is you are going to open it. Now at this time, what you need to do is you would then need to plug in your switch, and the switch is going to be connected to the TP-Link wireless router. So if you have a wireless router at home, you will connect that switch to the LAN port 1. You do not want to connect to the WAN port. It has to go to the LAN, L-A-N. And then another Ethernet cable is going to connect your computer to the port 2 of the switch. So there will be two ports that you're going to connect. Port 1 is going to be to the router from the switch, and then port 2 of the switch we are going to connect it to the computer. So once you have that established, then you are going to click here and you are going to choose the Ethernet, which should show 192.168.0.101. As you recall, the wireless router that we used previously, the TP-Link, it would act as a DHCP or Dynamic Host Control Protocol. It's going to issue the IP address to the actual device. Either your computer if you connect to it, or the switch in this case. So you're going to click the 101 and you're going to start searching, and if this doesn't work, you have to reconnect and make sure that you have the actual IP address, otherwise it would not be able to show you. So here is my switch, and it's given the IP address 100. As you recall that my PC got the 192.168.0.101, which I selected the Ethernet for my PC earlier. Then the MAC address of the switch is shown here. The firmware version is shown here. So at this point, what we have accomplished is we are going to connect our devices, and we are going to open up the application. We selected the Ethernet, so we accomplished step 8. Then you are going to take the screen capture, and the screen capture that this is what you want. That should show the detail about your switch. Now, after you have taken the screen capture, then you would go ahead and click admin page. It would be useful that you still have internet connection. So the first time that you access the switch, it's going to tell you to use the default password, and then it's going to ask you to change the password. So I had already changed the default password to the new password. So what I will need to do is I will need to log in using my new password, which is here. So to log in, you can refer to this step. So you don't have to complete the registration, but if you do want to register if the business just purchased the device, because it's going to maintain a warranty. So once I log in, the first time I log in, I'm going to be required to use the password, which is step 29. And then it's going to prompt me to change the password, so I change it to this. And so it's going to present me with the admin page, which is here. And so here you can see that it's going to give me the product name, which is the model number. You can put in a switch name, so you can say like, department 1, for example, switch, and so on. And then your serial number is located here. The MAC address is here, and the bootloader version along with the DHCP we want to enable. The default, it does not allow you to directly connect using 192.168.0.238 or 239 because if you enable the DHCP mode, which is by default, it would need to acquire. So here it acquired the first IP address that the router TP-Link gave it. The subnet mask is here, and the default gateway is the router. So then I would be able to move forward. So now if you complete the registration process, what you would see is you would be able to look at the devices that are there. So if you're unable to do that, then you don't have to complete step 10 through 28. Okay. Now, to configure my switch, I then would come back to the admin page, and here I can start clicking on the port status. As I connect the router to port 1, it's going to show up because there's a cable connected, and then also my port 2 is through my computer. So here it would show the link speed is 100 megabit per second, and then the link speed for my computer is 1000 megabit per second. And now when you follow along, after we log into the admin page at step 28 and 29, we put down our IP address and our MAC address information. So the default gateway is our router, which is the .1, the subnet mask, which is shown on here in the switch information. All of this needs to be recorded. Then what we need to do is we need to look at the port status. So it's going to tell me that there are 2 ports that are up because I have the cables connected to port 1 and port 2. And the link speed that it provides is located here. Okay, and so it shows me that the first 2 ports are connected. Then what I need to do is I need to look at flow control. So by default, flow control, what you see with flow control is that flow control that is disabled, and you can turn it on by using this option. Okay. But you have to select the port and then you can choose. So Now, what is flow control? In the section of this, I actually put down that it is a way that we can pause the frame so that way we don't have packet loss. And the setting would only enable when it might be in the case where we have network congestion. Then after we look at flow control on the configuration using our browser here, then we can take a look at loop detection. And loop detection, you can have it enabled if you want to look at there are existing loops in your network and be able to remove it. So that way your network traffic will be improved. And so it talks about network loops, how it can slow down and stop normal traffic. So when your network has a loop, the switch is connected to itself, and so therefore it's going to cause delay in your network. So what you want to do is you want to check it. Sometimes if you run into switches that are looping, you would see that the LED light would change from green to blue or a yellow color. And that would mean that it's not connecting out to it's not sending through data, so it's not connecting out and it's looping to itself or it's stopping. So what we can do is we can enable this and be able to click the apply. So once you check enable, we will then click apply. And then in the next part, what we will need to do is we are going to look at the management mode. And we are going to look to see what kind of option do we have for management. So the link right here is going to give you the option for management mode. So you can directly connect to the utility by using web browser, or you can do web browser and plus utility. So I prefer to have both, only because I want to have option as running the executable and the web browser, in the case that you might only have one tool or the other in different systems to configure. So we would be able to use web browser and plus utility here. So once you select that, you would then click apply, and then you are going to move to the next step. So here at that point, what we're going to do is we're going to go into looking at your port statistic and monitoring. So going back here, we are going to look at here it also shows maintenance, but right now we don't need to have any kind of maintenance, but you can do that along the way, like managing access control, putting in IP address. And so here's monitoring, allows you to do statistic analysis. So now it doesn't always update, so you want to refresh, and it's going to give you the bytes that is being received and sent. So it's going to be able to monitor if there's any error checking and correction, it would adopt that here. So at this point, what we would see is the statistic of your port, and you can take a screen capture of that. Then after step 35, we're going to go into mirroring. And mirroring allows us to select a certain port that we can monitor, especially when you have a certain traffic coming in from the outside through the router. You can copy the packets that's sent to that port and forward it to another port. And we would use tools and external tools, monitoring applications, and things like that to evaluate the packets. So in here, what we would see is if we click mirror, what you can do is you can select the port that you want to mirror, and then you can choose the port that you want to copy. So you're going to select the port 3, and then you're going to choose the 5 or another port that's on your switch. So what will happen is when 3 is receiving the traffic, it's going to send that to port 5, and we can focus on port 5 for us to be able to evaluate that type of traffic. Now, if, in the case where we have one switch, we're able to do this, but if we have many switches and many type of systems connecting, we can, distribute it out to multiple ports that we want to mirror and be able to group them up and set up a way that we can we can analyze those. So that's how you would be able to do mirroring, and here it talks about that. Then on this switch, it has a thing called cable tester. We can use it to determine if our cable is good or bad, and likely sometimes there's deterioration to cable. So you can select all cables, or you can select the port that is connected to the cable, and then you would run the test. And it would tell you the test result. Now, if there's cable faulty, it would show that here. So it's fine. My cable is working fine. Then we are going to go into the multicast tab. And in this tab, we can control like a certain type of address, and we can block multicast. So here, we're going to go to multicast. And in the previous week, we talked about IGMP snooping. And so we can enable it by selecting this option here. We can also use Vlan, enable IGMP snooping. So on the Vlan side, we can specify, which Vlan ID, group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, group 5, etc., to be able to enable that. And then we can also validate the header. If you want to do that, you can enable. So for this, we're only going to need to enable the block unknown multicast address. So what does that mean? If it's coming in, if the traffic is coming in, and if it's coming from an unknown multicast address, multicast just means that it's sent to many, then we want to be able to block it. And then we can set up the static router port, which we connect the router to port 1. So we can go ahead and click apply. Okay. Then the next part we are going to look at, we're going to answer the question, is IGM port snooping status enable or disable? We enable it, so we can put down the answer there. For 39, we are going to go into Vlan, and then we are going to enable change port 3 and 5 to group 2. And so that way we can do Vlan that will be port based, which assign ports to the switch of the Vlan. And for port based Vlan configuration, we would use the Vlan ID that would be placed. So what do I mean by this? So when we go into Vlan, and Vlan stands for Virtual Local Area Network. When we enable this, we are going to click the warning OK. So we can group the system, so we can say 1, 2, and 3 are on the Vlan 1, and then we can group them together like that. So as long as they're in the same ID, and also to configure Vlan, we also want to make sure that they're on the same subnet as far as IP version 4. And we can go ahead and click apply. Okay. And then, this we would need to put in. So let's say I put in like 2 and 2 here, right? Or I can do 1 and 3, 3 and 5 is going to be on a separate VLAN. So right now the way it looks is 1, 2, and 4 is on VLAN 1, 3 and 5 is on VLAN 2. Then after that, what we're going to do is we are going to look at, we're going to enable advanced port-based VLAN status. So another way that we can manage VLAN is we're going to go into the advanced, and then we can enable this, and click OK. So what we can do is we can say, okay, we want to group on the VLAN 1. We want to group 1, 2, and 4 together. And then we can click apply. So that means that the computer connecting on 1, 2, and 4 are going to be on a virtual local area network. that will be separate from the 3 and the 5. So now if we wanted to add another one, then we can check 3 and 5 and then check 1 and 2 and 4. And then we want to make sure that this is on the Vlan 2. We're gonna Vlan 2, we can do 3 and 5. So select the Vlan identifier, select the port number, and then we're gonna apply it. So now you have 2 VLANs. You're gonna have the first VLAN, that's gonna be Vlan 1. It's gonna connect the system to port 1, 2, and 4. The second VLAN is Vlan 2, and that's going to be port 3 and 5. So after we take a look at the VLAN, we're going to take a screen capture of what we configured. Then we're going to go into QoS. In the QoS mode, you can have the port base or the 802.1. And all this is it's going to allow you to set priority for your traffic. My analogy for this is like you're driving on the road and there's an ambulance vehicle coming through. You need to pull over and let the ambulance go by. So what you can do is you can slow down a certain type of traffic that is not priority, and then you can set the priority traffic to go before. So you can set the high priority for the connected device, and that will be the device that's connecting to the port. So if I have gaming systems that I want to make sure that that's priority, and those gaming systems are connecting to port 1 and 2, then I can make sure that I select the port-based QoS. Now 802.1p, this allows you to select the type of traffic that will be priority. So if we say, okay, voice over IP type of traffic needs to have higher priority, then we would select that mode 802.1. So really to sum it up, if you select 802.1, it's for prioritizing the type of traffic. And if you select port-based, it's prioritizing the port connection or the system that's connecting to those ports. So now it's default to 802.1p. Most modern switches and routers uses 802.1p, so you can use that. So we would put down that 802.1p is what is default selected, and this mode would be appropriate for the business if we focus on the traffic type that we're prioritizing. If you're focusing on the type of device that you're prioritizing, that will be the port-based mode, not the 802.1p. And basically, after we had take a look at this, we can log out of our switch. The only thing that you can also look at rate limit for a certain port for incoming and outgoing. So that's how you're able to prioritize. I didn't cover that in the exercise. You can also change broadcast filtering. When you enable broadcast filtering, then you can specify the port that you want to filter and so on. Now we can control the rate once we specify here, and then you can select the link rate that you want from this particular list. So let's say I wanted to set like this, I can do that and click apply. That will be for broadcast, and broadcast just means that it's sending to all the systems. So if you use such a high link rate for broadcast, it's gonna take up a lot of your bandwidth in your network. So what you can do is you can regulate it to a size that would be suitable for your bandwidth, as it's going to be sending out to all the systems on the network. And then you can also limit your rate, so that way you don't have congestion or overloading your network. Okay. Now on the VLAN side, you can take a look at how you can enable and disable certain type of mode, and then we talk about that. And on the system side, for the maintenance, you can work on firmware updates. We want to do that occasionally, and so if you wanted to have a loader mode, you need to go to click here, and then you should read the documentation from Netgear or the provider, the manufacturer of the switch, before you start doing any kind of changes to the actual firmware. We can also save the configuration to a file, so that way we can transfer it if needed and save it in case something happened to our system. We can use a certain file to restore, and then we can also manage access control for the switch. So now most of the time we would connect to the switch using a computer or another system. You can specify the address that you're using to connect into that switch, and with the address you can specify the subnet mask, and then you can click add. So and as we grow, we would want to have, a few systems in here that would be connecting for access management. And this concludes my video for the lab. Once you have all your screenshot and your answer, you want to submit it onto Canvas. And thank you for watching this video.